right, I think we are on. And so we'll give a minute or two for everybody to jump in. And hello, everyone.
Can they see me yet?
I believe so.
Oh.
The number of people, 5 new attendees have joined. And if you are in the lobby, I'll just chat really quickly to everyone. If you guys want to make mention as to where you're dialing in from today, before I make the introduction, we'll give about another 30 seconds or so for everybody to come through. I'm starting to see a lot of the hellos. This is so exciting, and to be part of the second TMF week with Montreal, it's a real pleasure. And the screen is just lighting up right now, which is a lot of fun. So maybe on that note, what I can do is officially welcome everyone and say hello to our next session of TMF week, Trial Master File Through the Eyes of a Clinical Study Associate. And so my name is Michael Pupil, and I'm the head of sales at Montreal. Incredibly excited to see everyone here today, and I know it's going to be a really great session. So a big thank you to Nicole for putting this together. This is going to be a lot of fun. Before I turn it over to Nicole, our typical housekeeping that we normally cover, I would love to encourage everybody into the group to feel free to use the Q&A session. Of course, we're going to be tackling a lot of those questions at the end of the webinar. All the attendees will be certainly receiving that certificate of attendance that's coming through. Networking breaks normally follow through all of the sessions today. And of course, the recordings are going to be available on the TMF week dashboard that we've got lined up. So before I turn this over, joining us today, just to make a quick introduction, Nicole Weigel, who is a Senior Clinical Study Associate for Daiichi Sankyo. Nicole is a Senior Clinical Study Associate within Global Clinical Operations and Planning at Daiichi Sankyo. She's been at DSI for over 6 years and has experience supporting phase 1 through 3 trials in multiple therapeutic areas. Nicole is currently responsible for TMF management on a global phase 3 study, collaborating with all of the functional areas and CRO partners to ensure TMF completeness, inspection readiness, and in her spare time, we learned that Nicole loves to, with her 4-year-old daughter, engage in some sewing and baking activities and learning new crafting skills. So I was telling Nicole before this session that not only can I learn, and I think we all can learn a lot about her role and her activities, but I can certainly use a little bit of help on those other crafting ideas as well. I'd be terrible at it. So on that note, Nicole, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and remove this and allow you to kick it off. There we go.
So hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Weigel, and I'm a Senior Clinical Study Associate at Daiichi Sankyo. I know a lot of us had not had the chance to go travel, go on any sort of vacation in a really long time. So I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to take you all along on a road trip through the different stages of a clinical trial and how the Clinical Study Associate uses the TMF and our experiences in our day-to-day role. So I just wanted to put this disclaimer that the following views and opinions in my presentation are of my own and should not be attributed to Montreal or the organization where I'm employed. So what are some stops that I'm going to be making on our road trip today? I'm going to be going over a little bit about what is a clinical study associate and what are our pre-study responsibilities. I'm also going to be covering some uses of the TMF during site study startup, study conduct, as well as study closeout. So what is a clinical study associate, or a CSA for short? So it's a role within clinical operations that assists in the planning and execution of a clinical trial under the supervision of the study manager. Now, I know this is not a universal title, so some other companies may call this role a clinical trial assistant, a clinical trial coordinator, or even a clinical trial support specialist. the CSA serves as the TMF content owner for clinical operations. And then based on experience and seniority, the CSA can also be delegated the responsibility of the study-specific TMF owner. So I really like to think as a CSA, I am the driver of the car. I'm really the one on the ground and responsible for driving the TMF processes throughout the course of the study. So similar to going on a road trip, there are things that we need to pack and prepare prior to starting our clinical study. So the very first step in preparing our TMF for our study is having our studies TMF set up in our eTMF system. So what I need to do is I'm going to be submitting a request form with information such as clinical study name and the clinical study number to our system administrator so that they can have our TMF set up in our system. So we also need to have an itinerary for our trip that will lay out the TMF management expectations. So I'm going to collaborate with my TMF specialist on drafting our TMF management plan and TMF inventory that is really specific to our study. I'm also going to make sure that I have our different functional area representatives review these two documents and provide input as necessary. I also need to make sure that my co-pilots are trained on the expectations of our trip. So I'm going to hold a training with our internal and external team members on what our TMF expectations are for our study. Once our team members have been trained, I can then get them access to our TMF system by submitting a request form to our system administrator. Once we have a more finalized site list, I can work with my system administrator to enter information like our site name and investigator name into our TMF as well. So now that we've laid out the roadmap of our trip, we're all packed up, we have all of our belongings in our car, we can finally head out on the road. But I realized that we might need to make a pit stop. So I've had experiences where we need to make a pit stop and slow down our pre-startup process. And an example of a pit stop is a delay in the finalization of our TMF management plan. So I've had an instance where we have a new team member that needs to sign off on our TMF plan who doesn't have access to our system, hasn't taken the required training. And because of this, they can't sign off on our TMF management plan. At our company, we also outsource a lot of our TMF related duties to a CRO or vendor. So if we don't have a finalized scope of work for these CRO vendors, we can't put that information into our TMF plan. And this can also cause another delay in the finalization. So now that I've made our pit stop, our TMF is all set up. All of our team members have a copy of our itinerary. We can head out on the road and start our road trip. So there are different uses of our eTMF in study startup. One of them is that I can create our study-specific plans like the clinical operations plan, the safety plans, and medical monitoring plans. I can create those plans directly within our system and then route for review and signature directly within the system. Now, there's a really big benefit in this. Once the documents are signed off and final, I don't have to run around and remind team members to upload these documents. These documents are just automatically filed directly within our TMF. Now, also during study startup, I'm going to make sure that our expected document lists are updated, and these are going to track the expected TMF content throughout the conduct of our study. I'm also going to be entering in some study startup milestone dates. So for example, I'll enter in the date of the first site that has been initiated on our entire trial. Also, the first site initiation date for every site in every country. And then the the site initiation date for first site initiated in every country. And what this is going to do is help our team track the status of site startup and the collection of our essential documents for the sites that have been initiated. So now that our team has made great progress, we've initiated all 80 of our sites, I decided it's time to do a field check. So I looked down at my dashboard and I realized that our TMF completeness is showing only 10% complete. I'm gonna have to do a little deep dive as to why. I noticed that a lot of our site essential documents are missing. So what I'm going to do is meet with our CROs who are responsible for uploading those documents on a more regular basis and create an action plan and monitor the progress of the upload of those documents. Another reason why my TMF completeness might show at a really low level is that we were supposed to have 100 sites on our trial, but we dropped 20 of them. So now our TMF is showing sites and their expected document lists for sites that are no longer participating on our study. So what I'm going to have to do is work with our system administrator to have those sites and those expected documents removed from our system so that our completeness can increase. So when going on a really long road trip, it's really important to remember to take care of your car. So making sure you complete the necessary maintenance check. Even as a driver, I really need to have a rest, and my favorite are some snack breaks. So now we're going to look at the different ways a clinical study associate uses the TMF during our maintenance. So we perform TMF oversight. So I have monthly meetings with our CROs to review metrics. I'm looking at, are the documents being uploaded within the designated time frame listed in our TMF plan? I'm also looking at metrics to make sure to capture issues during our QC period are being resolved in a timely manner, as well as I can look at the different types of trends of issues found during our QC period. And now that I speak of QC, we also have quarterly functional area QCs of our TMF. So during our QC, I make sure that our expected document lists match the number of expected documents within the system. So if there are any types of discrepancies, I note that during my QC so that can be handled and remediated during our remediation period. The second component of our QC is a review of the quality and the content of our document. So what I'm really looking at is to make sure the version of the document that has been uploaded to our TMF is supposed to be there. Are there any other documents that really need to be in there? And to make sure if there's no missing signature pages, and make sure the correct document is there. If there are any types of issues identified with the individual documents in my QC, I do tend to flag them within our system, and then the document owner is responsible for correcting those issues. Once our QC is complete, we have a set remediation period for issues to be found, issues found to be addressed and corrected. Another point of our TMF maintenance is that I need to cross-reference other systems. So we use an external system to distribute our safety notification letters. So I'm going into that external system on a continuous basis, looking at all of the safety notification letters that have been distributed and making sure they're actually uploaded into our TMF. Another thing I like to remind my team during maintenance is that we need to continuously file our documents in the TMF. Nothing is worse than having, a bolus of documents at the end of the trial to upload. An inspector can walk through our door at any time to do an inspection, and we need to make sure our TMF is inspection ready. So we have to continuously maintain the filing of our TMF documents. Now we have a new enhancement in our TMF, and we can use our TMF for CRO monitoring oversight through trip report review. Now this is my new favorite enhancement. we can use our TMF to pull up the trip report. We can review, log any type of findings or comments directly onto the report, and then route for a CRO team member to provide their comments and input on our feedback. Now, we used to use an Excel tracker, and it was a very manual, lengthy process, and we've seen a lot of issues during that process. So I was always trying to figure out which version of the document was the right one we were using. We were also trying to make sure our CRO partners were commenting on the right version of the document. And I even had, on accident, one of my team members delete all of my comments during my trip report review, and I had to start back at square one. So now that it's more automatic and within our system, we can track the trends, the outstanding issue resolutions, and other types of metrics with just a simple report. I also need to conduct a completeness check of site level documents. So what I'm going to do is review documents like our investigator CVs, medical licenses, and IRB approvals to make sure they're up to date. I'm also going to be cross-checking the site's 1572 with the documents filed in the eTMF to make sure that we're not missing any applicable essential documents for current or new site staff. So no matter how well I maintain my car, there's always going to be a bump in the road or traffic that ends up slowing down my progress. And some of these items in regards to our TMF can be missing or expired site documents. So if I notice during my QC period that there are missing or expired site documents, I make sure that during my trip report review, if I notice new staff members, I will make a note and say to the CRA, have you collected the documents for the new team members that have been assigned to our study? Please make sure you're uploading those documents into the TMF because I have not seen them at this time. There's also always going to be changes in sponsor and CRO team members. Now, it could be a little problematic if these team members leave the company and they end up not filing any of their documents within our TMF. We're going to lose those documents forever. So on a continuous basis, I have to remind our team members we need to continuously upload our documents into the TMF. Now, another issue could be that our expected document lists are not being updated regularly, and this isn't going to show an accurate reflection of the number of documents that should be within our system. And then sometimes it could get a little difficult to have all of our functional areas complete our documents QC. So I do remind them that, like I said previously, we can have an inspection at any time. So all of our functional areas need to complete their QC to make sure all of the applicable documents are within the TMF. So our trip is coming to an end, and we are almost at our final destination, study closeout. Some tasks that I'm going to be completing during TMF closure is I'll be tracking the site closures through milestones. So I'll be entering in dates like the date of the database lock, the last subject visit date in every country, and the last subject visit date for every site. I'm also going to be completing one last final QC of our TMF. And if there are any type of outstanding issues during the QC, they would be noted in our TMF closure memo, as well as any type of actions our team has taken to resolve them. And then I'll work with our TMF archivist, who will help finalize the scrapbook of our road trip and set our TMF to close in our system. So now we will have a complete story of our trial from start to finish. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to give you an overview and taking you along on our road trip on how a clinical study associate works with the TMF in their day-to-day role.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. There definitely are a couple of questions coming through the chat and the QA portion as well. So maybe just start. There's an anonymous question that's coming through. Are placeholders being used to assess TMF completeness and expected document lists?
Yes, we are using placeholders in our TMF. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I mean, maybe just to take a step back, I love the analogy of, a road trip and all of the, I guess, the expected and unexpected delays that can come with travel, if any of us can remember what that was. If you had to give advice to somebody in a similar situation, how do you prepare for those upcoming and sometimes non-expected, issues that can come up with trials?
So at the beginning of the trial, it's really important to have input from all the various functional areas so that they can let us know what documents they're expecting, and then we can pretty much paint a picture at the beginning of the trial to make sure that we have it laid out, all of the documents we are expecting.
So planning.
Yeah, planning. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another question that actually just popped in from Jamie. What would you say is the biggest challenge of the TMF that you would like to see a change for?
So, like you mentioned in my intro, I am responsible for a phase 3 trial, and although we provide oversight on a large phase 3 trial, the volume of documents that come in and we are required to QC is rather large. So because we have to, we at our company, we complete a QC of what our CRO completes, but it is rather large. So one of the things I would like to maybe change is is the volume that we need to conduct during our QC.
Interesting. So maybe leveraging off of that, certainly probably ties to metrics. There is a question that came through. Could you provide a list of metric reports that you use?
Yeah, so some of the metrics that we capture on a monthly basis are the document processing time. How long does it take for our CRO to upload the document from when it was finalized? We also run TMF completeness. How complete is our TMF? How many documents are we missing? And then we also run metrics on the volume of outstanding issues and how long our CROs and our team members are taking to correct those issues found during our QC.
Amazing. So I've got a really interesting, I think a lot of the themes of the questions that are coming through are how to tackle challenges. So it's sometimes the road trip is, there's a few bumps in the road. So here's a question. Do you find it challenging for your team / vendor / CROs to upload documentation? You have to consistently remind them.
So it might not be more of our CRO, it might be more of our internal team that I'm always sending out reminders that we need to maintain uploading of our documents.
Okay. How do you casually navigate that path?
I honestly, during our routine meetings, I just say, hey guys, I just want to remind everybody that we need to continuously upload our documents and making sure that they're all in the system. I noticed that some of our plans, there are a couple versions missing, so please make sure you're uploading in a timely manner.
Okay. Here's a fun one. If you can script the next road trip, if you could design the eTMF of the future, what would it include to help the CSAs of today? Oh,
that's a good one. Oh, that's really put me on the spot. So right now, our completeness checks are really done outside of the system, and I have to do them in an Excel tracker. So if there would be a way for us to conduct our completeness check directly within the system so that I don't have to keep having different versions of the tracker and making sure all of our team members are using the right tracker and addressing the comments on the right tracker. So for us, if we had a more systematic approach on the completeness check and have an audit trail, that would help completely.
Interesting. And you've definitely stirred the pot here with a number of questions, Nicole. I've got one here that asks, are quarterly reviews the current trend in TMF QCs? Seems a little excessive, especially for phase 1 studies. So maybe going to some of your earlier experience, not the phase 3 that you part today, but some of the other studies you've worked on.
So at our company, we do quarterly QC checks. It doesn't really matter what the phase is, but that's how our TMF QC is handled at our company currently.
What would you say the percentage of TMF is QC? That's another question that's stemming off of the one just before.
So for my responsibility, I'm generally handling a QC portion of all of our study level documents, as well as a percentage of our site level documents.
Any number that you want to throw out there?
So for my sites, I'm generally doing a sample of 10% of our sites that have been initiated on our trial.
Very good. So Karen writes in, do you provide oversight for your CSA team, or is there assigned person or persons keep your TMF inspection ready?
So we also have a TMF specialist assigned to our trials. We have a TMF specialist group, and they are the ones providing a lot of the oversight as well.
Sounds like a pretty comprehensive team. And this one's a little more pointed. How much time does someone spend updating EDL?
So for EDLs, if you continuously to do them as you're uploading documents, it shouldn't take very long. So once you upload a document, you go in, update the EDL. If you wait for periodic times, it might take a little longer. So if you continuously doing it on a recurring basis as you're uploading documents, it shouldn't take that much time.
Okay. Very good. I like this. There's a couple of anonymous users, so I can't give a shout out to this, but you mentioned that a lot of the study work is all within your eTMF platform. What do you track externally or on a manual Excel? Most TMF owners do not choose such a TMF system that includes visit reports or plan review and finalization.
So what do we do outside of our system? Trying to think. So we recently just used just had the enhancement in our functionality. So previously we did use trip report review and Excel for trip report review. I guess, oh my God, I'm thrown off guard now.
Maybe everything is inside the system. You did mention, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head, I might have to come back to that one.
No worries. Maybe we can jump to something a little different. This one popped in as we were talking about the, I guess, planning. Is your TMF QC percentage defined in your TMF/vendor management plan? Is that a defined number, or is it something that is just you're going with?
Yes. So we have our percentages are established upfront in our TMF management plan, and that includes all of that information.
Awesome. Here's a pretty good global one coming in from Chrissy. I really like this one. How do you enforce good documentation practice, GDP?
So that's a good one, and I'm stumped again. So might have to come back to that one.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries. There's so many questions coming through, and just a reminder to the entire group. You know, we're obviously, if I've missed a couple, you know, we're going to come back to these, and obviously answers are going to come a lot. We want to try to get to as many as possible. So if some of the questions seem like they're coming in and not exactly in order, I'm trying to keep up with all of the questions that are coming through. So Nicole, you've definitely stirred the pot of curiosity for everyone, which is always a sign of terrific, presentation and content. So I'll jump to one here that says, do you find internal team members ready to upload in the TMF, but placeholders aren't ready yet for whatever reason?
Generally, no. Usually, we generally no.
Yeah, I could figure. I think that I would have probably guessed that you would have said no, not really, but it's an interesting one. If that anonymous user wants to have a follow-up question to that, I'd love to come back to it. Here's another one. How do you handle it when there are more documents filed for a document type as to what you expected? An interesting one.
Yeah, so what I do is I would run a document listing report and make sure that, do we have any types of duplicates in the system? Are there multiple versions? Do we have, what is filed in the TMF, is that supposed to be there? So I would go into that classification and kind of do a little deep dive to make sure what's in there is supposed to be in there.
Very interesting. And maybe a question coming from me. So, obviously you've been working on clinical trials for a number of years, different, phases, a lot of experience onto this. If you had advice to give to somebody starting their career, for the first study that they're going into, what would, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself in your first year?
Oh, so what I would tell myself is to make sure that, I know I repeated this a couple of times, is make sure that you are uploading all of your documents on a continuous basis, because I at times made a mistake where I didn't, and we were doing QC checks and I realized I had a bolus of documents. So it took me much longer to upload the backlog of documents than it would have if I would continuously uploading them throughout the process. Yeah.
That almost sounds like a life lesson in any chore that we have to do.
Yeah.
Wash the dish, then wait till the sink gets full and have to do it all in one shot, for sure. I think that's a pretty good life lesson. I think the anonymous user may have, so, and one that is a little bit more towards the management, I guess, of the team. So the question here is, do you have someone that specifically manages the placeholders so that the percentages are accurate? Or is that just teamwork as a whole?
That's just teamwork, yes. So for all the functional areas, they're really responsible for uploading and doing their own completeness and functional area QC. So it would be up to the functional area representatives to keep on top of that type of task.
Amazing. Well, let me just check. Yeah, there's a few more here that are coming through. I just lost my place. Sorry, everyone. Give me about 2 seconds. Click the wrong button. Brittany writes in if there's access to the recordings. Yes, Brittany, and just the rest of the group. Recordings of all the sessions will be on the TMF dashboard, or the TMF week dashboard. Following this, most of them will be released as of next week, on the week of the 21st. She'd like to pass along the compliment that there's lots of great info into this. So Nicole, another shout out, from the team. So maybe what we can do is we can pause here, let everybody kind of catch up with email. There is definitely some networking that's coming up as well. Later today, there are more sessions that are obviously coming through with TMF Week. I get to be honored hosting another panel later today, but at 12:30, there is another session called Data-Driven Deliverables. The D3 is sponsored website. I think right now there's going to be a number of networking sessions. If you haven't already sat at some of the tables, I highly encourage it. I know that the world of our events being live is no longer a case, but should be coming in pretty soon. But the conversations that I've been able to have been amazing. Working with you, Nicole, today has been a really great piece. We got to share a lot before this session had started. And so I want to thank you again for your participation in TMF Week, the presentation that you delivered. And I have a feeling I'm going to be forwarding over a number of questions that I have you do some homework for us.
Perfect. Thank you for having me today.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, and see you on the next TMF session week. Bye-bye.
Bye.